We were just talking about a show that you and Ted Nugent, apparently. Did you pitch it? Who pitched the show?
It was an idea that my manager Heidi and I came up with. Well, mostly Heidi. It was called basically Henry and. You put me and someone I might have some disagreements with, or a few agreements with, and we just go somewhere and we weigh in with a camera following us. And we're thinking it'll be like a 6-part miniseries, like, me and plus 6 interesting people. And one of the names that came up was Ted Nugent, because I'm a fan of his music. I think he's one of the best guitar players I've ever seen. Yet he and I would probably disagree on one or a few topics. And so we actually pitched it to Ted, who said he loved the idea, but he said, I got to go on. I'm busy with it. He had a ton of tour dates, so I think he's on now. But he said, I want to talk to Henry to thank him for thinking of me. Okay. And so Ted called, like on my phone in the office. I guess he got my number from the powers that be. And suddenly it's Ted on my phone. I'm at my desk like, okay, this is surreal. And we talked for a few minutes, and he said, like, what, do you think I'm a bad guy? I'm like, no, I just, some of the things you say, I it kind of takes my breath away. And then we quickly got on the topic of music. He said, you like all that old Detroit music? I go, yeah, man. I mean, you, Mitch Ryder, the Stooges, MC5. I mean, it's kind of the best. It's some of the best music I've ever heard. I mean, I asked him, I go, what is it? Is something in the water? What is it with you Michigan guys in guitar tone? Like, no one gets tone. Like you, Ron Ashton, Stooges, Fred Sonic Smith, MC5. I go, you guys, I mean, you're so good. And he said, we gotta hang out sometime and we'll just talk about music. I went, I'll do that with you. So I'll be taking notes. And he was just telling me, like, yeah, I used to hang out at the MC5 house and go see the Stooges. And I'm like, you're killing me. Because this is like, that would have been heaven for me to see those bands like back in 1969 or whatever.
When did you know him? Did you know him back in the day, or did you only speak to him recently?
As a punter, I would go see him like in high school in the 1870s, Carter administration. I'd go see him play in my local arena in Washington, D.C. in a place called the Capitol Center in Largo, Maryland. And he was as good as rock and roll gets. I mean, I saw the Double Live Gonzo lineup, and like, forget it. It was like 2.5 hours of just getting beat up by music. It was fantastic. And to this day, it's still a high watermark as far as gigs. And in the 90s, I met him on Politically Incorrect Bill Maher. And I said, hey, man, I'm a big fan. And he gave me a bow hunting catalog. I'm like, well, thanks, for his whack master.
Right.
You get the croquet mallet and the bow. Anyway, I kept it because I'm a fan. And then I met him years later, and I did his radio show, like St. Patrick's Day 1997, to crassly promote my next record. And I said, we met years ago, and we got to talking for like a couple of hours. And it was just about music, and I played him some of my new record, which he really liked. And between the commercial breaks, he was like playing riffs for me. We had a little headphone amp, and he was sitting across from me on a stool playing. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. And so that's the kind of relationship I have with him, where you read some of the things he says, you're like, okay, that's really hard to take. But those records, they're just so good to me. And I saw him play in 2000, opening for Kiss, 2001, somewhere in there, and he was great. Great. The tone, the playing, just fantastic. And so he's just an interesting bunch of guys.
A bunch of guys.
You know what I mean? Because like, he can finish a sentence. He's not stupid. He's hilarious. He has a steel trap memory. But then he'll just say, the Obama's a subhuman mongrel. Like, man, you don't need to talk like that.
Right.
Because there's people you will inspire to punch some black guy in the parking lot for no reason. Like, something bad can happen if you talk like that to the millions of people who love you. Like, someone will get that message and they'll go south with it.
Yeah.
And when you're in that position, I don't believe in self-censorship. But I think you should be careful of what you say. I think there's some merit in having some control of yourself. And so I don't completely understand the guy.
There's currency and outrageousness. That's what it is. And you cash in by being the guy that says things I can't believe what he just said. And then you become the guy that goes places and says things that no one can believe that you're saying.
You know, I know that there's some people, that's how they get their next book deal or whatever.
Yeah.
For myself, I would never want to trade in that, because my reality coming up through punk rock and all of that is very, very immediate, in that I don't say anything about anybody without expecting them to hear it. And with me turning the next corner, like going to my car in your parking lot, and having that person waiting for me at the car saying, hey, you said this, and having them be able to hold it up on a tablet and say, and so I watch what I say, because in my mind, I will have to answer to all of it. And so I would never say something where someone goes, really? Well, today's the day we're going to see who can kick whose ass. Because, you know, men have this wrong idea that they can't be beat. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Anyone can get knocked on their ass. You think you're tough? There's always, you're in the business of tough guys. There's always a tougher guy around the corner.
There's always a tougher guy. But more than that, it's like most of the conflict that you get in when you're talking shit about somebody, like someone like you or I can do an interview and talk shit about someone and then go public and you don't think twice about it. But then now it extends to social media and pretty much anybody could do it at any time, and it just seems so easy to do. But I always try to think, if that person was in front of me, how would I treat it? And if I would say fuck this guy, like when he's in front of me, then I have a real problem with this person. Sure. It's a real bad person.
But I would always wait until I was in front of that person. And I have waited. I've bided my time with people I don't like, and you get into a conversation. And I have said, very calmly, I think you're a ridiculous person. I think you're a standing, walking, talking billboard for cowardice.
Sometimes people need to hear that too, because sometimes people don't hear that. They don't hear that from someone.
Yeah, I'm not trying to help the guy.
Yeah, but you are. But believe me.
But I waited.
Yeah, you waited
until I was there. The
Yeah.
only people I'll rip on are politicians. Like some member of Congress, I think, is just an inactive waste of food. That I'll say anywhere, hoping it'll bring him to me so I can say it to his or her face. But for the most part, the way I was brought up in the world of music and the street is, if you say something, that guy will be lining you up for a broken jaw. Mm-hmm. So you better mean it, but maybe just wait until you guys are in a room and see what you really want to say. Because sniping from a windowless room from somewhere, or being a keyboard activist, that doesn't mean much to me.
Yeah, I think Ted is the spokesperson for the right in that he's this contrast in so many ways. He's this wild, and it used to be long hair. He doesn't have long hair anymore, but long-haired guitar player from Michigan. I mean, he's Ted Nugent. He should be a drug user or something, right? He should be on tour all the time, but he's the opposite. He's like, doesn't do any drugs, doesn't drink, and he's super right-wing, and he supports, the Second Amendment and guns, and he's in this group of, and he has some very strong beliefs that he really does hold in that group. But then comes the outrageous stuff that he says, and you would get a mischaracterization of him because of some of the things he says. But if you meet him like in person to person, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
I talk to him all the time. We text each other.
That's only been my experience with him.
He's a great guy.
I've had really cool conversations with him.
Yeah.
And I'm a hyper fan of the records. I mean, it's gospel to me that those records are in my DNA.
Yeah,
perfect.
I'm with you in that I don't know what fuels those
and I just don't get
statements.
It. I'm not here to rip on him. I just honestly I can't reconcile the conversations I've had where he's super friendly and happy that you're a fan of the guy, and then you watch some things he says on some stage somewhere, and you're like, wow, that just bummed out my whole evening. Like that's like
yeah.
Okay. Like, that's you. That's the First Amendment. Go do your thing. But like, wow,